Today's guest is a woman whose name has echoed through time. She's known as the Mother of Nations, the wife of a patriarch, a symbol of promise and of faith. But that's not where her story begins. Before the laughter, before the miracle, before the child, there was a woman who carried a pain that many of us wouldn't survive. A woman who knew what it meant to smile on the outside and ache on the inside. A woman who followed God and waited and waited and waited. She was called beautiful, but she felt barren. She was told to believe, but she battled doubt. She stayed faithful, even when it felt like God had gone silent. And yet, she endured. Because sometimes the greatest faith is simply choosing to stay. Today, she's not just a name in a genealogy. She's not just a Sunday school figure. She's a voice, a woman with a story, and she's ready to tell it in her own words. So lean in, family. Because today on the Bible Character Podcast, we welcome someone who truly knows what waiting means. Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Delight.
Sarah, let's go back. Before the promise. Before Abraham. Before anyone knew your name would one day carry nations. Who were you?
I was the girl everyone noticed, but no one really knew. They said I was beautiful, praised my grace, complimented my face. But beauty doesn't fill a womb. They saw the surface. I lived the silence. Every month I held my breath. Every year I watched others carry what I longed for. Women whispered, some even pitied me, but none of them knew. I smiled at people who didn't know I cried myself to sleep. Do you know what it feels like to be full of love, with nowhere to pour it? To walk through tents and hear children laugh, but know none of them call you mother?
Did you ever feel forgotten? By God?
Yes, I did. I knew of him. I heard the stories. I followed my husband. I followed the call. But there were nights I laid in bed, looking at the stars, wondering if he even saw me at all. But even in the silence, I couldn't let go of hope. I kept setting a place for it in my heart, hosting it like a guest I didn't want to leave. Sometimes it felt like hope mocked me. Other times, it comforted me. But I never stopped waiting for it to return.
That's powerful, Sarah. To host hope, even when you feel forgotten.
Waiting does something to you. It humbles you. It breaks the parts of you that used to find worth in applause. It forces you to talk to God when no one else understands your pain. Waiting strips you down until all you have left is faith. And there were days I didn't even have that. Just a whisper, a flicker, a memory of a promise I hadn't even received yet.
Your outside may sparkle, but God sees the tears you've never said out loud.
Yes, and he bottles every one of them. I didn't know that then, but I do now.
When Abraham said God told him to leave everything, what did you feel?
Terrified. But I went, not because I understood, but because I loved him. I trusted him, and I hoped that maybe the road would lead to something, or someone. I packed up a life I knew, for a promise I couldn't see, and we walked through dry lands, strange cities, unfamiliar roads. I learned the sound of camels more than the sound of children. I learned to fold tents better than I folded baby clothes. We were always moving, but I felt stuck inside, waiting, wondering. Was this what obedience looked like? Sand in my shoes, no place to call home, and still no child in my arms.
That kind of obedience, it costs.
Yes, it does. I gave up home, hoping I'd gain a family. I left everything, the comfort, the routines, the familiar laughter of neighbors, all for a journey that didn't come with directions. Every time I asked Abraham, "Where are we going?" he'd say, "Wherever God leads." So I walked, and sometimes I cried while walking, because obedience doesn't always come with explanations, but it makes room for something greater, room for what only God can build.
Obedience doesn't always make sense, but it always makes room for God's plan.
Yes, and I didn't see the full picture then, but I was part of it, even in the wandering, even in the questions. God wasn't just taking me somewhere, He was shaping me for someone I hadn't become yet. Abraham would come back from those moments glowing. I heard God again. He'd say, "There's a promise, a future, a nation inside us." And I would nod and smile. But inside, I was still waiting, because God kept speaking to him. But I was the one living with the silence, month after month, year after year, empty arms, empty womb, full of questions. I wasn't angry at God. I was just forgotten, or at least it felt that way. Because how do you explain the ache of being close to someone walking in destiny and still feel like you're walking alone? I prayed too. I listened too. But the heavens were quiet, and I started to wonder, maybe the promise was only for him. Maybe I was just the extra. But here's what I've come to learn. Sometimes God is loud in one ear and silent in the other, not because he's absent, but because he's deepening the trust. He wasn't ignoring me. He was shaping me. Because faith isn't just built on what you hear. It's built on what you keep believing when you hear nothing. And I kept believing, even in the silence.
Then came Hagar, and everything changed.
That was me, trying to help God, trying to speed up a promise that was taking too long. I thought, maybe God was waiting on me to act. Maybe the child wasn't meant to come through me. Maybe if I just did something, anything, it would finally happen. So I gave Hagar to Abraham, my maid, my servant, the one who used to wait on me, now carrying the child that should have been mine. It felt wise in the moment, but the moment passed, and what followed was pain. Because the day she started showing, I started fading. She had what I had prayed for, and suddenly I was the outsider in my own story. Desperation makes you do things that destroy you. I was hurting, but I still wanted to be faithful. I wanted the promise, but I lost my patience. And that's the danger of trying to help God with your own logic. You end up building something that looks like destiny, but feels like defeat.
So many women will relate to this.
I know. Because when you've waited long enough, you start bargaining with hope. You start trading pieces of yourself, thinking it'll make the ache go away. But the ache doesn't go, the regret stays. And I carried that regret for years. Still, God is merciful. He didn't cancel his promise. He didn't discard me. He waited until I was ready, until faith became greater than my fear, and he redeemed what I broke, because impatience may birth regrets. But God still knows how to bring joy out of the ashes.
Let's talk about the laugh.
I didn't mean it to be mocking. It wasn't rebellion. It was weariness. Hope had become something painful. Every month that passed without a child felt like a reminder that I was broken. So when the angel said it, that I would have a son now in my old age, I laughed. But it wasn't the laugh of joy. It was the laugh of someone who's cried too long, someone who's heard too many promises and buried too many expectations. I laughed because my heart was tired. I laughed because belief was too heavy. I laughed because it hurt to hope again. But God heard the laugh, and he didn't get angry. He didn't rebuke me. He asked a question instead. Is anything too hard for the Lord? And that question, it cut through all the years of silence, shame, and sorrow. And yet, that very year, I held him in my arms, a baby I thought would never come, a promise wrapped in skin, and I named him Isaac. Because even when I didn't believe, God still kept his word. Even when I laughed, he still loved me enough to deliver joy.
So, what do we learn from that laugh?
That even your unbelief won't cancel a promise God made in love. If he said it, he'll do it, even if your laugh is the only prayer you have left.
What was it like to finally hold the child you waited decades for?
He felt like joy, wrapped in justice. I wasn't just holding a baby, I was holding a promise. Every wrinkle on my face, every gray hair, every year I had been mocked, pitied, overlooked. It all melted away the moment I heard him cry. God didn't just give me a child, he gave me my name back. He gave me honor in place of shame. He reminded the world that it is never too late when he is the one writing your story. There were times I doubted, times I resented, times I broke under the weight of waiting. But now I see it. Every delay was not denial, it was preparation. Isaac wasn't just a child to me. He was healing in a blanket. He was laughter that echoed through pain. He was the reminder that God sees, God remembers, and God fulfills.
So the waiting wasn't wasted?
Not 1 second. Because now, I know what waiting means. It means trusting even when you can't trace Him. It means walking forward with empty hands, believing they will one day be full. Waiting means God is doing something deeper than giving you what you want. He's preparing you to carry what you were made for. And when the promise comes, it's not just joy, it's worship.
God delays not to punish, but to prepare. The joy of the promise is always sweeter after the ache of patience. Maybe you're still waiting. Maybe the years have been long. And like Sarah, you've smiled on the outside while breaking on the inside. Maybe you've laughed, not because it was funny, but because hope started to feel like a cruel joke. But hear me, it's not over. Not if God is the one who promised. Not if He's the one who sees your tears, even when no one else does. Sarah waited and laughed again. You will too. What part of Sarah's story touched you most? Was it her strength, her honesty, or the fact that God still kept His word, even when her faith shook? Let us know in the comments, because someone else might just be waiting for the same promise you're holding on to, and your words could be their reminder. If you're still in your waiting season, this is your gentle, quiet reminder today. God sees you. He hasn't forgotten, and the waiting is not wasted. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who's still holding on to a promise, because sometimes the stories we tell help someone else keep believing.